We are creatures of desire. What we most desire is meaning. What makes us suffer most is a lack of meaning.
The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. Marital therapist, author, and communications trainer Andrew G. Marshall invites guests from all walks of life to discuss what makes life meaningful.
Hello, I'm Andrew G. Marshall. Welcome to The Meaningful Life. We're available on Apple, Spotify, Podbeam, and wherever you find your podcasts. We live in a culture that rewards exhibitionism and a grandiose sense of our own importance. Yet at the same time, we feel more fragile than ever before. We have an overwhelming need for reassurance. We feel more isolated, and it seems harder than ever to make real, intimate relationships. All these phenomena are aspects of narcissism, both individual and societal. However, rather than looking deeply and understanding, we tend to play the game of hunt the narcissist and cast them out, without truly understanding them or recognizing the strands in ourselves. My witness making a return to the meaningful life is Jungian analyst Susan E. Schwartz. She has a new book out called An Analytical Exploration of Love and Narcissism, The Tragedy of Isolation and Intimacy. Susan and I have done episodes before which I recommend checking out on the Imposter syndrome and the impact of the father on the subsequent relationship of his daughters. So, Susan, why did you decide to explore narcissism?
Well, quite like what you said, it's prevalent in the Western world and actually becoming worldwide in many ways. But I have mentioned narcissism as well in my other books. This one I really wanted to focus on because the tragedy is the singularity of it and the assumption that nobody can get through. It becomes pathologized, and that person more and more isolated. There is a tendency to absolutely castigate and, again, look as pathological if anyone has any narcissistic tendencies. And that tends to disregard the potential, possibility, hope, and desire that really is within a narcissist.
So in the therapeutic community, there's a sort of myth almost that narcissists don't come for therapy because they think they're wonderful, and why would they need a therapist? I mean, do you have narcissists actually come to your practice, or they don't know they're narcissists and come to your practice? What's your experience?
I think actually they know they're narcissists and they come to my practice. Exactly. However, if one is on the far end of the spectrum of any diagnosis, they very well might not come for any kind of analytical or therapeutic work. But if there is even a little opening, they tend to start to feel their pain. And the pain is what draws them and desire to live differently. Even if it is, I want to be pain-free, and that simplistic way, they will go to understand themselves. But there is another piece in this, and that is whoever their partner is, the partner might be trying to repair the narcissist, and that is actually unhelpful. So it's like giving someone cake who actually needs to not be eating cake. It doesn't work. It's antithetical to the psyche, so that the one who is with a narcissist and might be upset could go into therapy or analysis themselves to figure out what they're doing there, rather than trying over and over and over to fix the other.
So why is it so harmful for partners of narcissists to try and fix them?
Well, I don't know if you've ever read The Myth of Narcissus, but in it, there is a significant figure called Echo. And Echo, although a female figure, can be any other. We can extend it, and we can say her appeals. She is very vocal. She is very desirous. She reaches out. She offers. in that she's tremendously strong. But Narcissus never looks at her. Never. He hears her. He does not look at her. He doesn't recognize her. So, in a sense, it's really for the echo figure to keep her voice, to keep her desires, to keep what she wants, but not lose her body, which she does in the myth. And she doesn't lose her life, but she loses, how do you live without a body?
I was going to say, lives all possibility of joy, I would say.
Exactly. And they both actually die because they remain separate. So the issue is, how do you unite? And that is a narcissist coming to therapy and analysis and learning how to unite.
So what's the task then for the partner?
The partner has to understand, what are they doing there? Why are they in a situation where their desires are healthy, their hopes are healthy, and their needs are healthy, and they're after someone who doesn't look at them? So you don't just say in a simplistic way, look at me, or what are you doing? But you say, wait a second, let's together try to figure this out. One is not going to repair the other, but together, how are we going to, we? See, we is the significant pronoun. That is what is missing in the myth of Narcissus. And it's what is missing on a wider scale socially with narcissism. There is no we. Other is eliminated. Whoever other is, it can be in any form. And that's dangerous for psychological growth because you don't grow.
So I think now would be a very good time for us to have some kind of sort of definition of narcissism and also why it's so misunderstood in popular culture.
It's interesting. Narcissism is part of where Freud began over 100 years ago. So it's been a key aspect of any analytical or psychological curiosity for over 100 years. Jung, because I'm a Jungian analyst, Jung mentioned narcissism 4 times in his 20 volumes of collected works.
Wow.
Amazing. 4. Well, partly because, our world changes. He also had to distance from narcissism and from Freud. So he developed different approaches, which I think really work for narcissists in a more internal and not as castigating of a way towards finding oneself. So the search for self that narcissists really are after is what Jung capitalizes on, in a sense. However, we see more narcissists now than when Jung was alive, and they're of a different sort, in a way, than the beginnings of analysis, psychoanalysis, and all the way through. The intriguing piece of narcissism is it can feel very concrete, can feel defeating. And this is why I think people say, I can't see a narcissist. Or, online dating apps, are you a narcissist? Don't apply. It makes sense. But that shows the lack of real understanding of what is narcissism. You ask about a definition. I'm going to just describe someone briefly rather than a definition, partly because narcissism is not really strictly defined in Jungian psychology. And I myself don't find it very helpful to put someone in a category because they're already in a category. So why keep them in a box? And I think the beauty of narcissists is creativity, energy, hope for themselves. Okay, not for anybody else, but for themselves. And there's something that's viable and wonderful. However, narcissists oftentimes repeat the same stories because they are afraid and they're vulnerable. They talk nonstop. So you have to interrupt them. You have to remind them that you exist. You have to remind them there is an other in the room. And that in and of itself is healthy. To remind someone, wait a second, how can I be with you when you are in your own world? That's therapeutic and helpful.
And do you actually say that to your clients? Hang on, here I'm here.
Actually, I do. Partly because, and this is the signal of too much narcissism, it's boring. By boring, I mean there is an unconscious layer that is defended against. We all do this. We have our favorite stories of ourselves, our past, our future, and we repeat them over and over and over again. And I will say, I think you said that story before. So what are you defending against? What are you not looking at? I think it's helpful to point out to somebody, a narcissist, you can't live alone in the world. They're in pain. That's what I wrote about, is their pain. And to understand.
I mean, the compassion was a little bit of a shock to me, to be perfectly honest. I've been so used to castigate the narcissist.
Yes, I agree with you. However, we miss the vulnerability. You see, so when I say, you ask me, do I really say to somebody, I'm here, what are you doing? I have found that I see on their face and in their voice and manner and their body a sense of relief. I have been seen. Like in the mythology, Narcissus knows that he's seen, but he doesn't take it in. There is something about taking in the other person. And this is the danger of too much narcissism. You don't take it in. Isolation occurs. And the other problem, they don't know how to be intimate. So the example of the person that I sent to you with the dream, there's no way to be emotionally intimate. That's what they come to learn, is emotional intimacy. And then take it out of the office and use it with others.
Now, one of the things you talk about, which also surprised me, was sort of quiet narcissism, because we tend to imagine somebody, standing up in the middle of a party kind of narcissist, but there are other kinds as well. So tell me about that.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. There are oftentimes people who are involved with themselves quite the same as a noisy one, but they do it in an opposite way. A lot of hurt, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of tenderness, and because they seem quiet, they go unnoticed. And you see, this is the other conundrum of the narcissist. They don't know how to be noticed in a relational way and how to be noticed in a way that isn't, I'm on stage or I am hiding. So the quiet narcissist will be very involved with trying to make sure nobody sees their inside. The noisy one will be involved on trying to make sure nobody sees their insides either. They just do it differently. They perform in different ways. The noisy one will be center stage. The quiet one will be in the chorus line.
And I think the other thing that completely confuses us all is that there is such a thing as healthy narcissism as well.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, here's the example. I'll presume you and I did that in getting ready for this. So it is a sense of oneself, a sense of one's value, a sense of having something to share, and a desire to interact, and ideas, creativity, wanting to expand, to grow. That's the healthy part of narcissism. And also to relate in a way where one is seen, but also sees the other. It's very similar to the unhealthy, but it's used with consciousness. There's the difference. The healthy part acknowledges, I do this. I want to. It's good for me and it's good for others. The unhealthy is, I'm doing it so I can perform, hide, not be known, and nobody gets close.
And obviously there's a reason why narcissists are trying to keep everybody at a distance. Maybe you can help us understand that.
Yes, well, this is what people have said. I know that I have a fatal flaw. I know there's something wrong. I know I'm fraudulent. I've just known it since I was little. The other piece I would add is the influence of early life on the development of the narcissist. So children learn to perform to make the parents or whoever is taking care of them happy, repair them, make them feel good. They won't be depressed. And then they get kudos for doing a good job and making the parents feel good. And then they learn to do that in school. They do that with their friends, and they get rewards back. But do they get rewards for being their real self when they're not performing? And are they only seen as performers? The growth of the future narcissist is perform. Don't be you, but perform. It's kind of a fine line, but it really does start quite early in life, the development. And therefore, the earlier it begins, you could say, the more tenacious it might be.
And do you think it's a question that's worth asking for all of us, bearing in mind that our society in general has become more narcissistic? Do I have narcissistic trends myself?
Oh, well, that's part of the question that you said about healthy narcissism. There is something that is not healthy about projecting out to others. So you can always tell when you're projecting too much. One becomes very vociferous about it. I can't stand that person because they are this way, and this way. Okay, they are, but am I as well? Yes, I think we all must be, because we live in narcissistically oriented societies. There are rewards for being performative in certain ways, really performative in certain ways. We learn it when we are very little, and we become unaware and unconscious of what we have learned. So when a narcissist comes into my office, they're not just performing now. They are performing like they probably learned very early in life. And I don't think it is rewarding enough.
And what do you think is the cultural impact that is actually driving all of this?
Oh my, there are so many factors. And of course, we have to mention social media. We just have to. Or the fact that, you and I are on computers here. There's something about that brings us closer. And there's something that also creates the isolation and distance, so that people spend their lives virtual, not real. And they kind of lose the quality of getting ready, getting prepared, being aware of themselves quite deeply. So I think that social media can be used consciously to reveal oneself, can also be used to hide really quite a bit. And the other thing I would say is that, so I'll talk about this just briefly. The country that I live in, the United States, is a powerfully narcissistically run country and has always been. Always. From the beginning. I want to be free. That's the deal. And it has developed and developed and developed. And I think become both conscious and unconscious on a social outer level. So the culture we get raised in definitely influences. People get influenced by their ethnicity, their religion, how they begin. The point is, are you going to become conscious of it? See, there's where I think it isn't just the influence of narcissism. It's, are you going to become conscious of what you're around and what you are in? And there always is a limit to the level of consciousness, because we're largely unconscious in many ways.
So what sort of attention is narcissistic, and what is it seeking?
It's seeking a recognition that the narcissist cannot find within themselves. So this is typical of a narcissist. They get one award after another because, as I said, creativity, spark, energy, edginess. Each award is like, okay, put aside because they need the next. This is the way one person described it. It's like acquiring small pieces of tissue paper, each one put into the Grand Canyon, which is a huge hole in the earth. Huge, huge, huge.
Yeah, I've been in the Grand Canyon. I think you need an awful lot of tissue paper.
That's exactly right. But that's how the narcissist feels, that each achievement is, I'm on to the next. Equally, each person, I'm on to the next sparkle, the next shine, the next glittering something. That could be achievements. It can be material goods, but it also can be a search for the self in a deeper way. It can be an avoidance of the search, but it can be the search. And there is a feeling of emptiness inside, like the Grand Canyon. What will fill this hole? And there is where one wants compassion for a narcissist, but not to let them go in the sense of you're just a narcissist. It's much more, how can we figure together how to fill what feels empty?
And what are the sort of some of the answers that people come up with?
Well, a narcissist themselves will go to their regular deal, which is, I need more this, I need more that. It's always outer needs. But if through therapy and analysis, they start to be intrigued with their inner selves, their dreams, even also their body. See, narcissists are not so connected to their bodies, even though they must have a perfect body or an always striving to be something body. But if there can be a discussion around it, a recognition of it, and even just the words of, what are you really looking for? And do your dreams show what you're really looking for? What does your relationship really mean? So these questions that lead someone into a more thoughtful reflection about themselves.
And you talk about finding their dreams. There's this whole idea of family internal systems where we look at all these characters within ourselves. Is that something that can be helpful as well?
Yes, in Jungian language, you could say complexes, because they're like different figures of oneself, complexes are, and the discussion of each of these pieces, it's not that they're separate, it's how do they fit together? How do they live inside of oneself? Are you aware that you're replicating how you were treated by how you treat other people? Which aspect of yourself are you using? Which aspects do you hide from? One other part that, with a Jungian term, narcissists do not like any shadow. Shadow meaning anything negative. Now, shadow also means positive, but narcissists tend to see shadow as it's only negative. I can't show any negativity. But one really needs to show the shameful parts, the embarrassing parts, the difficult parts, the kind of ripped parts. Those are important to accept because it says you're a human being. One other piece I want to add in that narcissists do not do well with loss or death because they're very oriented on the life as a sparkle and shine, not as real, actually.
And I think they often have a sort of a sense that any problem can be fixed if I just throw enough time and energy and money at it. And then, you can't, death is not one of those things you can solve with those problems.
No. What's so interesting, I'm glad you said that. What's so interesting is that Narcissus in the myth dies like a teenager. So he never really gets into the totality of life. And this is also what the narcissist denies. The process of, life age, life being, that it can be viable, gorgeous, marvelous. It's not how one was at 16, but it has energy and life. Narcissists are very oriented on youth, younger in that kind of way. But youthfulness should be lifelong in spark and desire.
That's an interesting idea, that the energy, the spark, should still be there, but we can't look like we did when we were 16.
Exactly. And Narcissus, again, in the mythology, dies before he even realizes who he is looking at is himself. So the narcissist does not know who he is, because even though he looks in the mirror and has to look a certain way, he does not know he is seeing him. He oftentimes will see a part, an aspect, but the recognition of this is totally me, usually not. It's a complex process of looking in the mirror and absolutely seeing one's total self. I oftentimes ask people, do you look in the mirror and do you look and see what your eyes are telling you about you? Narcissus looks in the pool, in the myth, and does not see himself looking back at himself. It's quite profound. It's very distant, very disjointed and dissociated.
And why the eyes in particular?
The eyes are the windows of the soul. So if you don't recognize yourself in the mirror through your eyes, are you deeply seeing your soul? I don't think so.
I'm sitting here thinking, have I ever looked into my own eyes, to be perfectly honest, in the mirror?
Well, it's an easy look, but it's one that we forget about. It is not narcissistic to look at oneself and to look through and into one's eyes and see what you see. It's healthy. It's like an answer of, who am I today? How do I feel? What is going on inside? And you want to be able to look at your soul, because it's what energizes us through life, keeps us going.
And what's it like to start in the world if you have a narcissistic mother? Because we haven't really talked about that.
Well, let's expand it to talk about the mother and father figures, both of them. Actually, I'm not sure what the difference is between the narcissistic mother and the narcissistic father, because they both carry a need for the child to fulfill them. That's narcissistic parent. The child is there to make sure that the parent survives, is healthy, is fulfilled, and is not depressed. And oftentimes, the narcissistic parent is involved in their own world. They have the child do X, Y, or Z for them, but they do not see the child's needs or the child's individual needs. And they use the child for their own edification. Oh, I have this marvelous child. And they're unrelated to the needs of the child and the basic body needs. So I want to stress the body as well. So if the parent, either mother or father, is not related to their own body and not related to whoever the partner is in their mind also, that emptiness transfers onto the child, who feels the emptiness in a very basic way. And they're going to work very hard to, you could say, give the blood transfusion to the parent. It's a gruesome metaphor, but actually that's what the child has to do for a narcissistic parent. Please them always, give to them always, pay attention always. It's a very hard task.
And one you can end up trying to do for the rest of your life.
What you can end up trying to do, yes, for the rest of your life. I'm going to give another gruesome example. An extreme, because extremes are helpful because they're difficult to swallow. So Virginia Woolf, British writer, amazing.
Yeah, been to many of her houses.
Have you really? Well,
Yes.
Okay. As she describes, now she suffered a loss of her mother quite early, but we could say that her father, who was quite depressed and I think sounded narcissistic, she was to please him always. She was to take care of him, make him happy, talk to him at dinner every night, go with him when he wanted. You could almost say, did those demands, did they work on her system? Were they part of what separated her from herself inside. Now, there are many, many issues that we could say there were no medications at the time, etc., that would be helpful. But was it an aspect that she had learned to find her own self alone, not so related? Was that father who wanted so much for her, did he see how she had been abused? Did he recognize what was going on? I don't think so. It was a sad, very sad situation, but an extreme one. And she describes him as a tyrant, depressed, not seeing her. She goes on and on and on about him, just as an example of how a parent who is narcissistically oriented really affects the child. Again, an extreme, and there's many extenuating circumstances, but we could apply it just in this as well.
So how do you break out of that if you're suddenly thinking, yes, I'm beginning to recognize some of this stuff?
If you're beginning to recognize it, you're already breaking out. Right. And there's where it's really helpful to be in analysis or therapy. It's like you realize, oh, whatever the O means. And then you follow that up. Oftentimes there will be dreams that will show, what have I been doing? You asked about a dream. I'm going to just say one that short. A person who started getting the aha had a dream about being married to Putin.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And they went like that. Oh my gosh, married to Putin. How can that be? Married. Don't you realize? They woke up and said, oh my goodness, how could that be? I didn't realize. And then they realized Putin was like the father. So you see the aha starts breaking into the narcissistic isolation. And then there's a need to talk about it, figure it out. And how about getting divorced from Putin? So you see the whole thing starts to move then. There's the opening.
Well, on the subject of dreams, I've asked Susan to share a dream from her casebook, and we're going to be doing that in just a moment.
The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. Please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and visit our website, andrewgmarshall.com/podcast, where you can join our supporters club and unlock bonus material and other benefits.
Guess how long I've been helping couples have more fulfilling relationships? The answer shocked me. 39 years. Over this time, I've developed all sorts of interventions to help couples communicate better and make meaningful changes to protect and nurture their love. Some ideas I've used for a while and dropped. But at the core, there are a handful of must-haves that I use with all the couples I see face to face. Sadly, I can't work with everyone who wants my help, but I can share my best relationship tools. I've put them in a new course with worksheets and links to my most helpful podcasts. There are 4 hours of instructions to do at your pace together, with your partner or on your own. And it normally retails at £150. But to launch, I've dropped them to a special introductory price of £99.50. If you'd like to find out more, go to andrewgmarshall.com/tools and get started on improving your relationship.
Podbean, your message amplified.
Ready to share your message with the world? Start your podcast journey with Podbean.
Podbean, the AI-powered all-in-one podcast platform.
Thousands of businesses and enterprises trust Podbean to launch their podcasts.
Use Podbean to record your podcast.
Use Podbean AI to optimize your podcast.
Use Podbean AI to turn your blog into a podcast.
Use Podbean to distribute your podcast everywhere.
Launch your podcast on Podbean today.
As a mom, you know your home is where your family learns to love, where your little kids learn who they are, and where your bigger kids remember who they were. It's where dreams are born and come to life. Your home deserves a spotlight, and Everlights makes that happen. Everlights is your permanent external lighting expert. With Everlights, your home can become a princess castle, a summer oasis, or celebration of even the littlest wins. And with Everlight's limited time 20% off deal, you'll be the hero of your home and your checkbook. Let's give your home some color with Everlights. Go to myeverlights.com to get a free quote today.
Normally at this point I have a letter, but it just feels a little bit deeper to go and look at a dream. I mean, what else are you going to talk to a Jungian analyst about than a dream? And this is one that Susan has shared from her casebook. Is this from somebody who is narcissistic themselves?
Definitely it is, yes. And from quite a while ago, but the time is fungible. Could be any time.
And what I thought was quite interesting is it's the sort of dream that we all could have potentially had at some point. For years, Peter had a repetitive dream that he'd committed a crime. Initially, the crime was indistinct. The dream bothered him. In time, the dream escalated from his being an accomplice to a murder to becoming the main killer. The reasons for this were never given in the dream. Who and why was he killing? Again, no reason given in the dream. The shock upon waking was the acknowledgement he'd done the crime. Oh no, he would exclaim in dismay. He was not conscious the crime was still going on and became upset by the dream message. So tell me about this dream.
So the reason I chose that dream is because it's a very common dream. Many people have that dream. The crime committed, as he and I spoke about it, was that it was against himself. And he did not realize that he had been an accomplice. So here's the child beginning as an accomplice, you could say almost to the parent. We can transpose that. And then becoming the main killer. So what was he killing? He was killing desire. He was actually killing eros, or relatedness. He was actually afraid of intimacy. So he had been killing off, although a desirous of relationship, he had been killing off himself and not realizing it in his attitudes of distance to himself, unease with others. So this is typical of narcissism. Very uneasy once they start to get close. So the beginning okay, but then being revealed, being seen. Somebody will see who I am. I will cover it up. And what he did, and here's part of the murder, I'll give them great presents. I will text them with messages all the time. Love bombing, right? We'll go on great vacations, wonderful restaurants, fancy this, fancy that. As you said earlier, throwing this and this and this at the relationship to try to make it survive, but to try to create distance. And he began to realize that the murder was really, again, against himself and against his real healthy desire for intimacy, because he didn't know what to do. Being close. Being close is that every day being seen, not always looking wonderful or feeling wonderful, but feeling and revealing being human. And he had a dissociative, you could say, piece. So he had this very high-powered self and another self that was learning to be kinder, sweeter. He called it his yoga self. Loved yoga because he calmed down. So narcissists running. In yoga, he had to calm down. And he didn't really know how to combine the business high-powered and the yoga sweeter. The sweeter one was better in relationships. The high-powered one made him money. Look at the conflict.
And did yoga Peter and business Peter come to any kind of arrangement with each other?
You know, in the time that I knew him, they were moving closer together. And the opening was that we could talk about it. He could talk about the dream. He could say when it occurred. And it oftentimes occurred when he was too much in the business one. And you can imagine the pressure societally to really answer and fulfill the business one, make a bunch of money and sacrifice love. And the love part started to win out more. The dream was saying, if you don't listen to this, you're going to keep on murdering yourself. It's a very serious message. And what we could say is, if you murder yourself, then in fact, are you going to be murdering also your body self as well as your psychological self?
And I think it's absolutely fascinating that he was having the dream when the business half was taking over, like a sort of like a warning to him.
Yes, yes. And you see, here is where a narcissist starts to become realized. So they'll have a dream, or they might have some kind of an image that comes to them. They might have an aha that happens in a relationship. They also might be keeping a journal, if you can imagine, and they start to realize about their feelings, and they start to go into their feelings. And here's the yoga part that gets stronger.
Can narcissists find love?
You know, that's why I wrote the book. I really believe it. I believe they can. But, you know, love also means being fulfilled with another. It's having trust in oneself. It's learning that you're good enough and you're not perfect. It's learning that you can reveal your idiosyncrasies. You can be real. So there's one thing I want to add, and this is what I think one needs in relationships and where narcissists can really learn to love. There's a beautiful book called The Velveteen Rabbit. It's for children.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. And classics reveal the archetypes, and they reveal what we know in our bones. And in it, there's a beautiful passage where the Velveteen Rabbit says, you have to get kind of older and be a little worn on the elbows and a little worn out. And you know then that you're loved. So it's like you admit the beauty in who you are. So narcissists, yes, can learn that. And that, I think, relationally, is the beauty of any therapy and analysis, is you learn that you're acceptable and that you're all right and that you're not perfect, thank goodness, but you're human and humanly composed, and your inner world can be revealed to yourself and to others. It's establishing this level of trust.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much for that. We're coming towards the end of our main interview, and I normally ask my witnesses what makes their life meaningful, but as I've already asked you that, I'm going to ask you to share something that you've done recently that's been meaningful for you.
Oh, okay. Perhaps this is a narcissistic example, but I will give it anyway because it fits with this. So I was able to give a presentation at a Jungian Congress just recently. Oh, yes, it does relate. It was on self-deception, narcissism, and tyranny. And that was very meaningful to me, partly because the tyranny related to something that is happening in the country that I live, the self-deception and narcissism connected to each other and to tyranny, and the importance of the topic to me personally to be able to share my research on that. So it carried a meaningfulness in my reflections, but that the reflections were shared and could be related to. But that could definitely be looked upon as a narcissistic move, which actually it kind of was, because it's meaningful.
But I also think there was an exchange of ideas at this conference. It wasn't just, they weren't just standing up and giving you a round of applause. There was a discussion and amplification, and it was what we call healthy narcissism, because you saw the people in the audience as much as they saw you.
Yes, and you just said the key, being seen. But it's not just seeing yourself. It's seeing yourself with another and the other seeing themselves in you. And there's where the tie is. And there's where life is in the connections.
Because that's exactly what I was about to say. Sometimes the discussions afterwards are more interesting for us if you've been giving the talk than actually giving the talk.
Yes. Partly because one is challenged. So you have your own kind of ideas, and then somebody comes up with something else. And there is the interchange which allows for not singularity, but togetherness.
So this conversation is going to continue in a moment. We're going to be discussing what attracts us to narcissists. And if you want to hear the bonus material, you can subscribe directly via Apple or Spotify. And if you want to become a supporter of The Meaningful Life, here are the details.
You've been listening to The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall. You can follow Andrew on Twitter, like him on Facebook, and please leave a review wherever you consume your podcasts. Making, editing, and distributing The Meaningful Life comes with substantial costs, and we'd like to ask for your help. Visit our website, andrewgmarshall.com/podcast, where you can join our supporters club and unlock bonus material for every program, send in a letter to be discussed by Andrew and his guests, and join a community of other people seeking to make their life meaningful. At the gold level, you get even more benefits. Production of The Meaningful Life with Andrew G. Marshall is by Michael Dooney. Social media by Madeleine Healy. Sound engineering and theme tune by Sebastian de la Luz Mendoza. And I'm Susie Colick. Please tell your friends and spread the word. Thank you.
As a mom, you know your home is where your family learns to love, where your little kids learn who they are, and where your bigger kids remember who they were. It's where dreams are born and come to life. Your home deserves a spotlight, and Everlights makes that happen. Everlights is your permanent external lighting expert. With Everlights, your home can become a princess castle, a summer oasis, or celebration of even the littlest wins. And with Everlight's limited time 20% off deal, you'll be the hero of your home and your checkbook. Let's give your home some color with Everlights. Go to myeverlights.com to get a free quote today.